All right, good morning. Well, there's lots to talk about today. Stocks are up for 4 days straight. We had good news from Google. Google popped 7.3% after reporting earnings. They also announced a stock split, but then Facebook, disappointing earnings. They plunged more than 20%. So we will talk about this. Also, huge moves from Spotify, PayPal, AMD, Qualcomm, Match, Capri. So as you can see, this will be a full packed show. So today is Thursday, February 3rd. And if this is your first time here, hi, I'm Marcus Hypecutter. And that super smart guy over there is my head coach, Mark Hodge. Together, we have more than 47 years of trading experience. And every morning, we sift through a mountain of news websites, newsletters, and reports. And then we take the most important news and go live right here to share with you what you need to know as you head into your trading day. If this is your first time here, I know sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, but don't worry. We have a special video just for you that I will link to in the description. And that's a great place to get started. So, Mark, let's take a look at the markets. Here, the S&P 500. I mean, for the past few days, it was just up, up, up.
It was, Marcus. I mean, 4 straight winning days, and you see coming off of those lows, just a real nice rally here. People were talking about maybe the bottom being priced in, and things look good over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, even NASDAQ, I mean, the NASDAQ that is deep in the correction territory had a good run, and yesterday up 0.5%.
Yeah, I mean, even the Dow up 0.6%, and yesterday's close put the Dow back above its 50-day moving average.
Right, because this is where, when there's no bad news, the markets do what they like to do is just drifting higher, right? Because traders are by default optimistic. But yeah, even Google yesterday. Let's talk about Google just for a moment. So Google, huge day yesterday.
Yeah, real nice gains for Google off of earnings, and you see that they're flirting with highs at 2021 highs, up 7.5%.
Yeah, so I mean, good earnings all around, right? I mean, we had earnings from AMD yesterday, and so AMD was up 5% yesterday. What else? We had Qualcomm, QCOM that was up yesterday, what, 6.25%. So that was good. I mean, it's all across the board. These are chip makers. Then we have Match Group. So Match Group also had really good earnings, up more than 5% yesterday. And you talked about it, Capri, which is the holding company of who's all in there? These luxury
Michael
goods.
Kors and some other brands, yeah.
Right, so luxury goods, and I mean, they had, so all looked good, and this is why the markets overall thought, okay, well, you know what? Everything is looking good. I mean, companies across the board are reporting better than expected earnings, but then Facebook came along.
Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call it, Marcus, yes. And this is a little bit of a surprise. I mean, kind of like we had from Netflix a couple of weeks ago. Uh, Facebook just getting absolutely crushed pre-market, down over 23%.
I mean, that's huge. 23% for Facebook, that's a huge move. As we can see, now trading at levels that they haven't seen since what, late or mid 2021. So erasing
Yeah.
basically all of the gains that have been made here in 2021 or in the latter half of 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. Hitting those lows going back to the beginning of 2021, late 2020
Oh yeah.
support there. So, and why the drop? Well, investors were surprised by some of their numbers, in particular, weaker user growth. So, daily average users were expected to be around 1.95 billion, and they did decline to 1.92 billion. So, they actually expected an increase from 1.93 billion. I know we're getting into the nitty gritty there and the details, but bottom line is it's Facebook's first quarter-to-quarter drop in global daily users in its history.
And I think that is the big one because it just shows that Facebook is facing competition, right? I mean, for years, Facebook has been the only kid on the block. Now we have TikTok, we have Roblox, we have Snapchat, we have, I mean, a little bit of everything, right? And this is where Facebook had to admit basically yesterday, well, we are feeling the competition. But then also these privacy settings from Apple, this is where, I mean, Facebook, let's face it, it's not a social media company, it's an advertising company, right? I mean, yeah, and you can say, well, they're providing some content through social media, but they do make their money through advertising dollars.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so with Apple's privacy changes, they were saying that it will result in a $10 billion hit in 2022, and they're seeing competition from TikTok. I think you just mentioned that, and this is where Zuckerberg's a sharp guy, and this is why he's making that play into the metaverse, right? So he's not just doing that for fun, and I think that in the long run, this will pay off. But short term, disappointing sales forecasts and that privacy issue with Apple and revenue coming in from advertising definitely an issue until they find a way to monetize other things, which in Zuckerberg's eyes is the metaverse.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that eventually it will pay off. And right now, for him, it's a tough sell to investors where they say, well, we're making this move. And then, well, investors and analysts say, okay, how much money did you make in this division? And he says, nothing. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, not, not a whole lot. So and if you look at the chart here, we see also we were just used from Facebook to beat earnings, right? I mean, if you're
Oh
looking
yeah.
back here over the past what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters, right? I mean, year and a half during the pandemic, no surprise that there was that they took a hit there because advertisers were scaling back because there was all the uncertainty. But basically, for the past 2 years, Facebook has been blowing earnings out of the water, always hitting expectations, meeting expectations, exceeding expectations. And this year, huge shock for the markets and for Facebook investors. And this is why this massive reaction. But I agree with you; it's probably an overreaction.
Yeah, but for now, it is carrying over into other markets as well. Social media companies are taking a bit of a beating. I mean, Marcus, we could look at Twitter.
Yeah. So TWTR, Twitter, the symbol. So this morning also down 8%. They haven't done anything. They will report earnings and they will report earnings on February 10th. So it's another week from now, but it's when Facebook sneezes, others are getting a cold.
Yeah, Pinterest looking pretty ugly too.
Yeah, Pinterest down 11% in pre-market trading, and I mean Pinterest has just been sliding down. I mean Pinterest having a hard time here.
And then there's good old Snap.
Snapchat also having a tough time here, and in pre-market trading, I mean they're being hit hardest by this. They're down almost 18%.
Yeah, so looking like a tough day for some of these social plays, and Facebook just leading that way lower, having an impact on the NASDAQ. We'll talk about that in a minute, Marcus, but interesting setup for today's open.
Yeah, and this is where we're going back to okay, what are traders focusing on right now? Well, right now they're not focusing on the coronavirus and the Omicron variant. Right now they're not too worried about interest. I mean, it's still an underlying theme here, the Fed raising interest rates, inflation. I mean, we have a little bit the jobs market getting some spotlight again, but right now we are in earnings season, and this is where our investors want to see, okay, how does all of this, the supply chain issues, inflation, the Fed raising interest rates, how does this affect companies? And mostly they want to see, okay, going into 2022, what did you expect? And this is where, yeah, Facebook said, well, we're expecting to take a hit. Not good, not what we wanted to hear.
You want to look at Spotify?
Yeah, I mean, because we talked about the great earnings, right? This is what we did in the beginning of the show about Google, Qualcomm, AMD, Match, and now we have to talk about some of the uglier earnings, and so this is where we have Spotify. So Spotify reported earnings yesterday, and they are down 13% in pre-market trading.
Yeah, and again, it's a slowdown in subscriber growth that's causing this sell-off. Spotify said that premium subscribers grew by 16% year over year, but the growth rate is down from 19% in the third quarter. Spotify said that it expects 12 million new users in the first quarter, but this was short of analyst expectations and less than half of the 25 million that were added in the final months of 2021.
Yeah. Well, plus we know that right now there's this controversy about the Joe Rogan podcast, and then some artists pulling their music there. Joe Rogan came on video, issued, I don't know if I want to call it an apology, but at least a statement, an explanation. And I think it is good. Spotify is trying to control the damage here, but the CEO yesterday said, well, we don't know yet what impact it will have. And this is where we talked about it. Traders don't like uncertainty. So whenever somebody says, we don't know yet, that's not good. That usually means down.
Yeah, especially when he dangled the future carrot, saying that eventually it will have more than double its user growth to 1 billion listeners. So
It's like Facebook,
playing the
right?
let's look in the future.
Yeah, eventually the metaverse will pay out. Yeah, well, I mean, eventually is not real. We want to know this quarter or this year what is happening there. So, I mean, you mentioned it. This, of course, with all these tech stocks down, this has a huge effect on the Nasdaq. We're looking at a 5-minute chart here. And I mean, this is pretty much yesterday. You see how the Nasdaq was just dropping like a rock when we heard the news from Facebook. This here is because the Nasdaq futures trade a little bit longer than the regular trading session. So it's 15 minutes longer. This is why we see this. And then, I mean, overnight, they tried to digest, okay, is this an overreaction? But now going into the open, we see another drop right here. So the Nasdaq in pre-market trading right now, the E-mini futures are down 2.6%.
Yeah, and even the E-mini S&P market is down 1.3%. So not as bad as the Nasdaq, but still seeing a decent slide, a pre-market. And then there's the Dow just down 0.3%. So this is something that we've continued to see with the interest rate situation. And one thing that we've recommended to our mastermind group, focusing more on value over growth because of this environment. I mean, I think this drop is just purely due to the reaction in Meta, but still the mini Dow just kind of shaking it off.
Yeah, so going back to what you said in the beginning, if you're looking here at the daily chart of the Nasdaq or the S&P 500. So last Monday, was this the low? Is this right now just after 4 days up straight, just a little bit of a retracement? Or do you think we will test the lows again?
You know, I do think I'm going to say that is a low, but testing I can't rule out.
Yeah.
I think that's the line in the sand. 14,000 in the Nasdaq. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I think that's the line in the sand. But testing it, I don't. I wouldn't bet you fillets on it not being tested.
Yeah. Well, and this is where trade what you see, not what you think. And what we are seeing right now, volatility is still here. I mean, volatility, even though the VIX has dropped significantly. And we talked about this. I mean, reaching this level of almost 40, that's not sustainable. And we saw this drop here. But right now, we're creeping a little bit higher again. This morning in pre-market trading, the VIX is up 7.3%.
Yeah, and I know we're kind of wrapping up, but there were some other earnings reports, and the reaction was not positive as well. So some other ones. So it's right now. It's just kind of setting up for one of those moods pre-market where, well, it's going to be a down day, but sometimes down days are good days depending on the strategy that you're using.
Right. So we might go shopping today for the wheel strategy and start selling some more puts. And if you're interested in how exactly we do this, I'll link to a few videos right here. Take a look at this. We got to hop over right now to trade with our mastermind. And I'm very much looking forward to trading today. Have a great rest of your day. Hope that you have a great trading day as well.
Happy trading, everybody.